This is But the Years Are Short, the podcast where mamas who are therapists share real advice for real families. I'm Meagan.
And I'm Katie. And we want to be your front porch community where you can laugh and learn with us about the beautiful, messy, overwhelming, hilarious work of raising kids.
Because the days are long,
but the years are short.
All right, Katie. So today we are going to talk about resetting routines after the holidays. All right. So let's think about how did your family routines fall apart or shift over this holiday?
Well, I will tell you, frankly, it was sort of like it's like watching the train go as fast as it can towards the holidays, right? And like just barely staying on the tracks. It's like, I have this visual of the train just barreling forward full speed with all of the just piles and piles of things like presents and outfits and events
cookies
and so many things, and it's careening out of control. And then, I frankly, like, my kids went out of town and I went out of town, and then now I have them back. And so it was a little like it's going 1,000 miles an hour and then it was over. So it was a little weird for me. But now, like, I restarted with meal prep and planning and, got back on my own personal routine and all that stuff. Yeah. How about you? Like, what has it been like for you?
Yeah. So I would say holidays look like kind of like free will in world. I mean, the weather's been pretty nice down here. So I have a kid who kind of disappears from the time the sun comes up until the sun comes down. I call him and make him come in for lunch, but he is like rocking and rolling all over the world, the neighborhood. And then my other two are bouncing around to friends' houses and having friends over, but like there's no wake up time schedule, right? There's no bedtime. Like they just have to turn the stuff off. But the internet turns stuff off. So but I don't know when they're actually falling asleep. I'm gonna be real. And then there's not much of a meal schedule. Like we do dinner, but like they're on their own for breakfast and lunch. And I'm sure because we have 10 pounds of candy, no, 100 pounds of candy at our house. Like they are just eating candy all day too. So like there's just kind of moving and grooving. There's not a real schedule, which I'm pretty scheduled otherwise. Like when the world's happening, when we're on our thing, like we are scheduled in our world. And so I think like this is kind of what we're talking about. Like how do we go from this crazy madness to like regular world, right? But like, is there a point that you feel it, Katie, like that you personally feel like the post-holiday crash?
Yeah. Normally it's like, because I don't feel like my body doesn't feel good when I'm not in routine. Like all the things get all jacked up. Like my body gets kind of jacked up. Like I don't feel like physically I don't feel good. And like I get a little jumpy, like internally. And then I probably project that on my kids because I'm like, why don't you guys like move, do some stuff, like move around and stuff. I don't know. Cause one wants to watch TV literally the entire day. And the other one wants to be on the phone with her friends the entire day. And I am like, I can't, what's happening here? Nobody ate real food. I don't, how not? Like I just, like I sort of can't get it together. Like I don't understand it. And so, I think the post-holiday crash, I think for me, with my kids, comes with me starting to reinforce the boundaries and the pushback that I get, right? Yeah. With, okay, now it's time to start doing chores again. Now it's time to start like actually showering again.
Yes.
It's time to eat real food again. Mm-hmm. They don't love that.
No, none of them do.
It's time to start having a bedtime again,
Yes.
Like they're not into that.
They're not into it at all. And I understand. I mean, like, I think, which is funny because, okay, so I will say, I feel the post-holiday crash come like December 27th, right? When like all the holiday stuff's over. We still have typically like
whole
at
week.
Least a week off of school, right?
Yes.
But like I'm to the point where I'm like, you guys are crazy. You haven't done laundry.
Yes.
In 2 weeks. You
Yes.
haven't have you changed clothes? Like, I mean, are we
No.
just sleeping in the same
No.
clothes and wearing them? Like, so I think that's when I
And,
start to have
like
it.
and, like, you smell a little funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
Mhm.
shower.
Mhm. And they're
Yes,
like,
and so I think
"Why?"
that's why, and I
Mhm.
just, like, because I think the other piece is, Katie, is, like, I still work, right? So, like, I'm
Ah,
still having to
right.
come to the office, so it's like, there's a piece of, like, that I have my routine in some ways built in that I'm
Yes.
still doing, and so I think it's that piece of, like, now your lack of routine is hitting my routine, and I'm like, "No, thank you. I'm done." So it's like, how do we help our kids, and how do we help us shift, right? And so I was thinking about this of, like, when have the post holidays been the hardest? And like, how do we help? Have I have shifted?
Mhm.
Um, and so honestly, the hardest one for me was last year
Okay,
from
yeah,
the
say more.
Christmas break to starting school again. So my kids had been homeschooled for a long time. And so like one of the beauties of
Yeah.
homeschool is like you get to have a really slow shutdown and a really slow startup, right? And so they've been used
Yeah.
to a really slow piece. And so then when we go back to a traditional school schedule where we're starting the Monday after holiday, right after New Year's, like it was a shock
100
to
miles an hour.
100 miles per hour, right? And so
Yeah.
um I because I do kid stuff, like, I started doing the routine probably, like, the Thursday before, and you would have thought, Katie, I had decided to lock them all in cages by just telling them to go to bed on their bedtime.
Yeah.
Like, they
Mhm.
were so angry. They hadn't, like, exercised, they hadn't been eating right, like, all the things, right? But
Right.
it was so hard to start getting them back in that routine of, like, "No, we have to go to school, like, we have to go to bed, we have to do our chores on Saturdays, we have to do our things on Sundays this week, because your world is going to hit you." And I just think a part of it is, like, they don't understand. They don't like,
Mhm.
I know our kids, like, by that time I had a 7th grader, and so he understood, like, we had to start school again, but they don't
Mhm.
understand the gravity of, like that we know, of, like, waking up early and going having your brain actually on and all the pieces. And so I think it's like, how do we help give our kids practical tools for that, and how do we help them move through that?
Ooh.
So that's kinda what we're gonna
Yeah.
really hit on today.
Yeah, it's good.
So, like, from a therapist lens, what do you think is actually happening to kids' bodies and brains a week after, like, just the celebration of holidays and a little bit of no structure? What's happening to them?
Um, okay, what's happening to them? I think it is right. Okay, so when we look at what routine and structure do, right? They
Mhm,
provide the bounds, the boundaries, the guidelines, the things that make us feel regulated and safe and secure
mhm,
and all those things. And so while it's really fun to have all of those things like loosened and all of that for a short amount of time, um, it also sort of lets our bodies kind of move into this dysregulated state
mhm,
where the world gets really big. Um, and so I would think, right, getting back into this boundaried place is uncomfortable, um, obviously. And so that shift doesn't feel great initially. I don't know, is that kind of where you're going with it?
yeah, yes, for sure. And I think, like, recognizing for our kids, like you said, Katie, like, they're eating things they don't typically get to eat all the time. They don't
Yep.
typically have the same structure for sleeping. They may not be sleeping as much as you typically sleep. I mean, if they're my kids, they're definitely not exercising as much because there's
Yeah.
at our family, like our sports are just not happening, right? And
Mhm.
they're not going to go run their miles. No. And so I just think like there's all these physiological pieces that are
Mhm.
happening that our kids enjoy, right? And they're fun for a short period, but they are also really dysregulating for them. And so
Yeah.
then when we step in and say, okay, yeah, enough's enough, like we're going to bedtime,
Mhm.
of course we have a pushback.
Yep. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So
Hmm.
what about our own dysregulation during that space and time, right? Like, so last podcast I talked about like, as I am approaching going back into work after being off for 5 or 6 days, right? And the, like, almost panic that I feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before I got my poop in a group. Um, right, and I actually didn't have my kids around me, but, when I do and I get into that space, right, they can totally feel it.
Yeah.
So, when we think about, like, our own dysregulation or stress during the reset, how that impacts our kids, right? Like, how do your kids respond when you're all stressed?
Yeah, I think my kids, I have one who gets stressed with me and wants to fix all the things, right? And then I have
Uh-huh.
two that are like, just stop. And then they just kind of shut down. And they're like, just figure it out. I don't care. I don't want to do it. I don't want to engage. Um, and I think that's okay, right? That's like their thing because it is mine. Like it is my
Mhm.
stress. And so it's like,
Yeah.
how do okay, so I'll say like this holiday season, I am a worker outer. I don't work out hard, but I have to work out for my brain. And I didn't work out the whole week of Christmas because we just had so much stuff, right?
Mhm.
And I could start feeling it. And I think my
Yep.
family started noticing it. I'm a little more snippy, like if I'm just not in my routine. So then I was like, I have to do this. And so I made myself do it. And
Mhm.
I've made myself do it. And I can feel the relaxation. So I think like we even get off of our routines and that
Oh,
does
yeah.
impact our kids for sure. And as much as I didn't want to start working out again, like it was good for me and I appreciate doing it. And our kids appreciate the structure and things once we get there. We don't like it, right? I'm only having the internal battle with myself. My kids get to have the battle with us, right? But like I think it's okay, right? We just have to recognize that. Like it's going to be a different beast. It's going to be a challenging. How do we step into that in ways that help our kids and help us restructure?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's totally true.
So then when we think about that, like what's the very first thing you do in your family when you help reset? Does it look like mornings? Does it look like bedtime, screens? What else? What does it look like for you?
Okay, so when I think about it, I'll be honest with you, I think I start with food.
Mm-hmm.
I start with
Tell me
food.
more.
So I start backing the sugar out, because I think that impacts sleep, and mood. So I start saying like, no, we're not having cookies for breakfast anymore.
Yeah.
Like during the holidays, it's sort of a free for all. And I start putting parameters around snacks again. And so, for example, this week that we're recording the podcast is right. It's like they're still out of school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a week before school starts again. And I took one of my kiddos grocery shopping. We got all of the produce they like and all that stuff. And so the rule is you of your snacks, only one of them can be like quote unquote unhealthy. The rest of them have to be like fresh produce,
Mm-hmm.
or a protein, right? And so I start there, and then I start walking bedtime back, right? So it has been kind of whenever. And so then I start working it a little bit, a little bit closer to what their standard bedtime is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I think wake up time just sort of follows, for my kids. So I don't, I mean, as of the weekend coming up to school, I'll start making sure that they're waking up at a reasonable time so that
Mm-hmm.
it's not super jarring going into Monday. But yeah, but I start with food. What about you? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think I do food. I also do chores. And so
Yeah.
we
Oh, yeah.
start
True.
we start
True.
doing chores,
Yeah.
right? So a little bit of like the holiday thing for all of us is that like they don't necessarily have to do their laundry
Yeah.
on Saturdays, which is laundry day, right? They don't have to. Their room must be picked up, but it doesn't have to be like the standard of clean, right? And so I think that's where we start is like you have to start doing your chore stuff before you can do any of the
Hmm.
things. And then, yeah, definitely the candy. The candy goes up is one of the other
Yeah.
first things that we do. Um, and having structured meal times. So like this week we'll do dinner as a family again, like our normal thing.
Yeah.
But when it's not. It's like, you can get your plate, you can go watch your show, you can go talk to your friend, like,
Yeah.
and so I think those are the big things that we start to do slowly to get us on time and ready
Yeah.
to go. I think the other piece is like, how do we help? I think one of the things, I think one of the reasons that I do slow start and things like that is because it's
Mhm.
been hard to like just shift on a dime for me and my kids.
I
And
agree.
so when we think about starting slow, how do we help? Like, what are the tips you give parents so that they can find the things that work for their family to make these slow shifts instead of saying, like, Monday morning, we're hitting the ground?
You know what I have found is it's really hard for me to come back from a trip, whether it's a work trip or a trip for pleasure, and hit the ground running, right?
Hmm.
Like that is hard for me.
Yeah.
Or a vacation or whatever, that's hard for me. And so if I think about asking my kids to do that and they're not fully functioning humans yet,
Yeah.
like I just ask, I mean, I think that's kind of a trick for parents is think about how hard it is for you to come from like a dead stop to 100 miles an hour. Um with your brain not fully online. So I think that just builds in some empathy, So
Yeah.
plus I think ask any teacher what it's like on that first Monday back or that
First
first
week
day
back.
back. Yeah, I mean it's going to be hard. And I used to work in schools, uh, off and on, helping kids and teachers and for kids with different kinds of concerns. And I just know firsthand that it is really hard for kids to transition back in. So whatever we can do to help them on the front end is, I think, just helpful for your child.
Yeah. So, okay, I think then, like, what routines would you say? I think we've talked about some, right? Like, so we've talked about like shifting food, right? We've talked about
Mm.
shifting their bedtime. We've talked about shifting their chore lives. But like, those are some of those are big kid things. But like, what routines do you think are helpful as to help our families build a slow start to this, or tools?
I think I don't know.
Well, I have some ideas. Here's some. I got
Okay.
some. So how about I share some? I
Yeah.
think having a calendar, right? And then
Mm.
having on your calendar like the day school starts as well as the day that like life shifts back can be helpful, right? So if school starts, my kids start on a Tuesday this week, we're shifting life back come Thursday. And so like it's on the calendar of like Thursday's life comes back, right? I think can be helpful. I think when my kids were little, one of the things that we did was we started their bedtime and bath time routine pretty early when we talked about coming back online, right? And so then it was like the structure of what they knew before is like we're going to start reading the books, the things, we're going to start going to sleep again. I think those pieces can be really helpful for our little kids to have that structure and those normalcy things.
Mhm.
Part of the holidays is you don't really have a lot of normalcy. And so
Mhm.
having some of those pieces of just what your normal routine was before placed back
Mhm.
into their vacation, even though you're right, they may not have to go to bed at 7:30, which is their typical bedtime, right? Because they don't have to be up at 6:30, but like it's still good for them to start having that piece of practice can be really helpful. Um, I don't know, any other ideas you have, Katie?
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful. I think probably making sure that all the pieces are ready for your day back is going to be helpful, right? I think the first couple of days back sometimes, especially for those of us who have ADHD, are a little bit like a whirlwind, right? We get to school the first day and we have
Yeah.
forgotten our like three if you have littles, right? We've forgotten three things in the diaper bag that we normally have because we haven't had to pack it in
Yeah.
days and days. Or for the kiddos going back to school, they forgot their flute or they forgot their binder or because they haven't had to pack their backpack. So, I mean, I think really prepping that stuff well in advance, so that you're not caught, scrambling. the morning of, just makes anything you can do to not be feeling rushed and frazzled the first couple of mornings is going to be really, really helpful for both of you, because what you don't want to do is send your kiddo into the first couple days feeling already like strained, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think it's that piece of calm, right? That helps all of us
Yeah.
as we move into those routines. And so I think the piece of like, how do we have appropriate expectations for our kids? Because we kind of touched on it, right? Like, shifting back into school, the school week can be really hard. I remember picking up my oldest when he was in kindergarten, like the day after school started, and he fell asleep in the car on the way home, right? Because
yeah.
and we did have the routine, but just because getting back into following the rules, there's just so many more rules at school, right? Being with the friends, making sure you're on task, like it can be challenging for our kids. So, like, what do you think some of the expectations we can have to support them in that first week could be, Katie?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think one of the things that I started thinking this week was like, how can I get my kids' brains engaged again? Because they've been kind of in relaxing mode. And so in addition to the chores, right? I think, I'd like them to be looking into some things that they want to do this year. And as a way to get them engaged to kind of research things and be focused on something for longer, something other than a video game.
Yeah.
For longer than, 10 minutes. And I also think what I would like to do is I'm planning on taking them to the library tonight, right? Because I think, kind of implementing some reading time is going to be helpful, right? Like, let's use a different part of our brain than we have been for the break. So, yeah.
So I think like recognizing, what I hear you saying is like recognizing that our kids' brains haven't been working in the same ways that they are in school, right? And so giving them some patience in that, maybe building some routines into that. I think the expectation I always have the first week of school that I don't tell my kids, right? But I expect them to be tired and I expect them to be crankier just because
Ooh, that's good.
they haven't had to do all the things. And that doesn't mean that I'm like, yes, be cranky to me. That's not it at all. But like, I'm not surprised by it, right? And so I'm better prepared. I'm not surprised that they're a little bit more grumpy. I'm not surprised that I have teenagers, they're a little bit more moody,
Right.
because they haven't had to follow the rules as much. Their brains haven't had to do all the work and they haven't had to handle all the social pieces, right? And so that's all exhausting.
Good.
Right?
Yeah,
Like that's
a good point.
So I just give them a little bit more space. I understand. I'm going to reflect on it. I'm going to correct it. But as a parent, if I already know that, then that makes me feel more grounded into moving into that.
And like more patient. Yeah.
More patient,
Absolutely.
which is helpful for
That's a good
everyone.
Idea. Well, I was just going to say, like, when we're getting pushback from our kids, what I was just thinking, like, something that I kind of lean on when I'm getting pushback from my kids. Like, so I often get pushback from my kids that, like, I have to work, right? And so then they have stuff they have to do at home, right? And so I have a script that I kind of go to for this. And I don't really think of it that way, but it's just a thing that I say, right? So something that I say to my kids pretty often is, yep, this is the life that we have, right? And so it is helpful for me to just have a go-to thing to say. So I think maybe a go-to thing to say if you're getting pushback about, like, we have to reintegrate into what we do on a normal daily basis, because it's not the holidays anymore, is something like, so if, we're starting bedtime again, and they want to stay up late. What? I have to go to bed at 9 o'clock? What? I have to go to bed at 8:30 or whatever, right? I think it is helpful to have a go-to thing to say. So it might sound something like, yep, getting back to real life. And then, I think it's just helpful to have a go-to. I think if it continues, then it can be helpful to say something like, my job is for you to be healthy, and that's what we're doing here. Right. And so it just is what it is. It's not a power struggle. It's not, the statement just is that it's my job to keep you healthy. What would you add to that, or what do you think about that?
No, I think I call them tapes. I don't know. I don't like the word scripts, and that's so funny. I call them like little tapes, right? So the tape that I'm going to play for my kid. And yeah, I think we all have some of those. And they can be really helpful when it's just, like you said, it is what it is. It's the reality of the thing is that I know you don't like it. I don't really like it either. I like having the fun, and we have to do the thing. And I think that's okay. So I think, okay, yours is my job is to keep you healthy. Mine is often like, we have to do the things. Like, that's what I say. The other thing I say a lot is because I have teenagers, is they'll be like, so-and-so doesn't have to go to bed. They don't have to. They get to stay up. And I'll say, well, different strokes for different folks. And so that just means like different families do different things. And
I literally say, different families do different things. I don't know. I say that a lot. And there's nothing to argue with, right? Like, there's nothing for them to argue back with. And so that works pretty well.
Yeah. And it's not that like that family is wrong or wrong.
Agreed.
That's never it. It's just that this is what our family is doing.
Yeah.
Because I'm in charge. And so I think like that's okay. You will have pushback.
Yep.
They don't like it.
Because it's their job. It's their job to push back against you.
100%. And you're still in charge.
Yeah. And I think the real benefit to it is like, I really don't think that there's anything wrong with how that family's doing that. I really don't. They have different kids. They have different kids. My kids have different sleep needs. Yes.
And they have different expectations. Like, let's be real. And that's wonderful.
Yep.
And
it's all wonderful. And their family works how their family needs to work. And the way for this family to work is that our bedtime is this.
Yep.
And it feels
my kid told me
so good.
So excited to be 18 and move out when he gets to make his own bedtime. And I said,
perfect.
Well, good for you.
I'm
so happy for you. Have fun.
It is so fun to just be like, you bet, buddy. Have so much fun. Can't wait for you.
Great. Good for you.
Yeah. And for today, your phone has to be plugged in at this time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're so fun. They're so fun. All right. Okay, so I think what the takeaways could be today are going to be things like, how do we help shift our kids into the routines? Little small ways that we can build it in. How do we have great expectations for our kiddos and ourselves in those places? And how do we as parents communicate the need for it? So with those tapes or those scripts or things like that in ways. So we hope that was all super helpful for y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for joining us for this very festive edition of But the Years Are Short. Wherever this season finds you, we hope you're finding joy in the small moments. Have a wonderful day. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Our music is by Stephen Bedall. If you're loving these conversations, we'd be so grateful if you followed the podcast, left a review, or shared this episode with a friend. That's how we grow this little front porch community. And remember, the days are long,
but the years are short. While we often talk about mental health, this should not be used as a substitute for mental health treatment. If you or your child are struggling, please reach out to a local provider.